Hey everybody, I had a few minutes. I wanted to share a few quick takeaways I had from the book Democracy in One Book or Less, which was written by the author David Litt. And yeah, this is a very brand new book. It came out in June 2020, just about 10 or 11 days ago. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the book. So David Litt, the author, he was a member of President Obama's speechwriting team. And he was also, after the White House, he was a head producer and writer for Funny or Die. And now he seems to be more focused on writing and being an author. And I read his first book, which was called Thanks Obama, which was a memoir about his time in the White House, and it was full of anecdotes about what it means to work in the White House, and also what it means to be a speechwriter, and also stories about President Obama. Really enjoyed the book. I loved the writing. I thought it was really entertaining. And so that's what led me to go and purchase Democracy in One Book or Less. And I really enjoyed this book too. It's definitely a tone shift. It's not, anecdotes and a memoir about his time in the White House, but this is more about voting and democracy, and how David Litt feels like there's in the system in America, we have some issues. What are those issues? How can we overcome those issues? A lot of it has to do with voting and who can vote and whatnot. But yeah, today I want to share three takeaways from the book. These were just three things that I was thinking about after I finished the book. Not necessarily the three main takeaways from the book, but things that I thought were really interesting. Okay, so takeaway number one is the thought, who can't vote in America? And this was really eye-opening for me. And so David Litt, he quotes some researchers who say that roughly 22.5 million American adults have no voting privileges here in America. And a lot of these are felons and green card holders and also illegal immigrants. But that's still a huge portion of the population that have no say in our democracy. And so he spends a lot of time in the book kind of exploring who these people are. Tends to be a lot more minorities in this group. As a percentage of the total population in the United States, this group of Americans who can't vote has more than doubled in the last 40 years. Takeaway number two, and this was really interesting to me. So in the 2012 presidential election, Americans waited 23 million hours at the polls. Waiting lines were just huge. And he actually said that this was a come down. So I think the 2008 elections was even more than that. But 23 million hours, that's a lot of time that is wasted just to cast a vote. And the interesting thing is, of those 23 million hours people waited in line, the burden wasn't shared equally. So nearly 5 million Americans actually waited for longer than an hour to go and vote. And in the book, he talks about how this has almost been a tool used by politicians to keep some people away from the polls. Because obviously, the thought of, hey, I can go vote, but I'm gonna have to wait in line for 5 hours, that can be a real deterrent for me wanting to go and vote. And so he goes into great detail about where this is happening, who is being targeted, and who's more likely to have to wait in line to cast a vote. And he gives really good solutions. And that's one thing I loved about this book, is as he goes through these issues, he talks about how we got to this point, who's affected now, and he proposes a bunch of solutions about how the system could be better. Takeaway number three, another interesting idea. I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's basically the concept is, how strong is your vote? Is your vote wasted? And it goes into a lot of political terms about vote strength and if your vote is wasted. And the basic idea is that in America, we tend to live by people who think the same as us, who vote the same as us, who has the same preferences. And that's getting stronger over time. And so America is increasingly becoming little pockets and bubbles of sameness. And that's actually detrimental to the power of our vote. And so they measure how strong your vote is by how likely it is to make a difference, really. And so if you're living, let's say, in a community that leans right, let's say 70-80% of the community is going to vote for a Republican. Well, if you are voting for Republican, your vote's really not that strong because everyone else is voting for it. And if you withheld your vote, or if you voted for a Democrat, again, not that strong because everyone's just going for the Republican. And so he presents some interesting ideas. Again, I don't have time to go into that now, but just how that really isn't maybe the best model for a democratic process. And he goes through some things. I don't know how feasible every single one is, but really interesting to think through how could voting look different in America. So those are my 3 takeaways. I really enjoyed this book. I actually thought it was really eye-opening to issues and problems I didn't even know were there. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. I think David Litt does a really great job at explaining these issues. I can tell it was well researched. He definitely spent his time thinking through these things and going to correct sources. I will say, I mean, he was a member of President Obama's speechwriting team, so I do think a lot of the views are more left-leaning. So take that as you will. But yeah, I would recommend this. I think it's eye-opening. I think it really got me thinking more about the democratic process, and maybe that it has some issues that could easily be changed and easily be fixed. I really appreciated David Litt writing this book. I'm really becoming a fan of his writing, and I look forward to other books that he will write. And yeah, if you like this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. And yeah, everyone, I hope you guys all have a good day.